Hello and welcome to Art Appreciation. My name is Sean and I helped design this course. And today I'm briefly going to explain to you what you are about to embark upon. This is an introductory course for students who've never really been exposed to the formal study of art or art history. And it's for people who wish to learn to speak or write or think intelligently about art. If you've ever gone to a museum and you wanted to know more about what you are looking at, this is the course to take. If you want to impress your friends at a dinner party, this is the course to take. Because basically you will be developing a vocabulary that will help you describe a work of art. You will gain knowledge of what some art movements were about and what were the goals of those movements. Basically, this is an introduction to the world of art history. So there are a few goals in this course. The first one is to develop an understanding of what determines that something actually is a work of art. Because, art's confusing now, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between, a desk and a work of art. There's going to be some philosophical stuff in there about what is a work of art and why does art matter. And then there's going to be a lot of practical things, like what are the elements of art? What are some principles of design and composition? What's a line? What's shading? What's modeling? A lot of different sort of vocabulary words to get you familiar with speaking intelligently about art. And then you're going to learn how to describe what you see. And I know that sounds crazy, but you do have to sort of develop this way of talking and thinking about art, which will allow you to understand the art more profoundly. And then we'll discuss different things like what's the difference between two-dimensional and three-dimensional art, which sounds pretty simple, but we'll get into it. The second goal is to develop an understanding of the discipline of art history itself. So we're going to discuss, what is art history? Where did it come from? How is it practiced? What are some important art historical terms? What are some important art historical periods? What are some common questions that art historians ask? What are big themes and issues that art historians are dealing with currently or have in the past? And then if you choose to move on to study more art history after this course, there'll be an introduction to different topics that you can study in art history. Okay, so I'm going to go kind of lesson by lesson, but really quickly, just so that we are on the same page about what's happening. So in the first lesson, we're going to discuss why does art even matter? And that is kind of going to be the most philosophical part about this class. So you're going to be watching videos about, an introduction to art history, what's an artwork, what can you learn, what can you take away in your own life if you look at art. The second lesson will be what are the basic elements of an artwork? And this is the thing about, what is a line and how can it be used to convey definition or motion or emotion? How can colors set a mood? What's shape and form and how are they built out of those two things we just talked about, line and color, etc. And then in the third lesson, we will discuss principles of design and composition. And that basically means when an artist is putting together an artwork, are they thinking about balance, symmetry, asymmetry? What's the difference between a static and a dynamic work of art? What about pattern and how pattern can create, harmony and unity? So basically, how a work of art is put together. So you got to learn about line and color, and then you move on to how those things are put together and they create a work of art. The next lesson will be about describing what you see, and this is all about that vocabulary that will help you accurately describe a work of art. And this idea is known as formal or iconographic analysis. And then there's also this kind of in-depth methodological approach to looking at art. Like you just start naming things that you see. The fifth lesson and the first goal will be the difference between two and three-dimensional art. And I know, again, that seems very simple. One's flat and one's spatial. But there's still things to learn about. What different kinds of painting styles, or sometimes a painting can be sculptural and sometimes a sculptural can be painterly. And so it's important to recognize those differences. And then in the next goal about sort of art history itself, we'll learn about how art history is practiced. What is art history? There will be a number of videos that sort of introduce you to the discipline of art history, why we should study art of the past, how we can gain empathy through the study of art. And the 7th lesson is art historical terms. So in that first part, you learned art terms like line, harmony, unity, balance, symmetry, etc. So in this one, you'll be learning art historical terms. Formal analysis, idea, the contrapposto is a big one. So there are like terms that are that art historians use to describe works of art besides just those terms that we learned earlier. In lesson 8, we'll discuss common art historical questions. So what are some of the ideas that arise by studying art? For example, how cultural heritage implies a shared bond or a belonging to a community. I mean, you can look at cave art and we can discuss community art. What makes an artwork valuable? What's the difference between art and propaganda? Those are very interesting and common art historical questions that you will see often. The 9th lesson will be about current issues in art history. So this is, for example, feminist art or multiculturalism in art, or what if the art is amazing but the artist is a monster and has committed crime? So this lesson 9 is basically about sort of what people are dealing with now in art history. The 10th lesson is the final lesson, which is different topics. So basically it's kind of a series of brief summaries of art periods. So Paleolithic art, medieval art, art of China, art of Japan, art of continental Africa, Pacific Islander art. Just basically, if someone's making art and it's sometime they've made art, that's what this last lesson covers. And then you're going to have to do a project for this, and that project is simple, but it will take you some time, and that is to choose any artwork. Like you find something that resonates with you. But then you have to basically take everything that you have learned in this course and you have to discuss it at length. So first thing you have to do is kind of discuss the elements of the artwork. Describe the color, the balance, the symmetry. Is there foreshortening? Is there contrapposto? And then you have to describe the iconography, and that means the symbols that you see in the artwork and how those symbols help inform that work of art. And then you have to discuss the historical context of the work of art. So if it was made during the Middle Ages, what about Christianity and how the Catholic Church influenced what the art looked like, something like that. Are there any current issues in art history that it addresses? For example, let's say you're looking at paintings by Caravaggio, and they're amazing, and they create drama and dynamism, but also he was a murderer, so like, what do you do with that information? And then the last part is to internalize it and kind of explain, what did you learn from this work of art? What have you gained? Do you feel like a different person because of this? Has it not affected you at all? Basically, this is a more personal part of it. There are a number of exercises that go along with each lesson that will help reinforce. So besides the multiple choice questions, you have exercises that will, like write 100 words on, for example, explain the difference between the use of the word genre in reference to a specific type of painting and how it's used more generically. So in art history, there's a type of artwork known as genre art. But then genre is also, a kind of art, period, or a kind of art that you're looking at. So anyway, there's going to be lessons or exercises like that in each of these. And those will help reinforce the information that you have learned from that. So in addition to these multiple choice questions, there are also these, I'm going to say optional exercises, but I definitely recommend doing them because they will give you a better understanding of what you have just looked at. Good luck on this course, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learn something new about the art world and something new about yourself.